All right, welcome everybody. Mic test, mic test. Okay, just a quick couple minutes to give an update. In further study last night, prodding, just rereading over and over the Ezekiel prophecy to find more pinpointed information. So, the following. I've already kind of discussed these things before, but one of the things is that the attack will come from the north, right? There's a few verses where it says they will come from the sides of the north. They will come from the north. I've already said that. So whenever they do mount the big final attack, the final domino tipping over that will trigger the arrival of God and Messiah, they will be coming from the north and they will attack Jerusalem according to Zechariah's prophecy. I double checked and Ezekiel does not mention Jerusalem in Ezekiel 38 and 39. Okay, it's Zechariah that mentions Jerusalem, but it's talking about the same Gog Magog war. So, keeping those factoids in mind, they will come from the north and they will attack Jerusalem. It says in Zechariah and in Ezekiel they'll be attacking Israel, and that's already started. They're already attacking Israel. But when they come from the north and attack Jerusalem, okay? Now, the other thing I want to point out that is ascertainable, provable with the verses is for the last few videos, I've been saying we don't know for sure how long it will take for God to arrive once the trigger event happens. Well, I was wrong. The verses actually say, and I knew this. I don't know why I didn't think of it and whatnot, but the verses actually do say in that day. There's like 2 or 3 places where God says in that day he will arrive. But not only that, I looked up the Hebrew. It doesn't say in that day in the Hebrew. It says at the same time. Okay, I actually have the Hebrew here. It says here at the same time. That's Yom Hu Yom. Okay, I can't pronounce Hebrew well, so I might have not pronounced that correctly, right? But in Ezekiel 38, it says here, when they arrive from the north, it's specified in verse 14 as in that day. Verse 15, from the sides of the north, many peoples with thee, a great assembly, a numerous force. Verse 16, thou hast come up against my people Israel as a cloud to cover the land. Now I looked up the Hebrew word for cloud. It can also mean something that moves over in the sky, so that could be a reference to airplanes or an aerial attack. But nonetheless, it says in the latter end of the days it is. So that's an affirmation that this is definitely talking about the end times. Just further confirmation. And then it says here in verse 18, and it has come to pass in that day, in the day of the coming in of Gog against the land of Israel, an affirmation of the Lord God, come up does my fury in my face, and in my zeal, in the fire of my wrath, I have spoken. Is there not that day a great rushing on the land of Israel? Okay. The animals flee essentially, and they are destroyed. In verse 22, it says, I've been judged with them. It probably means I put my judgment upon them with pestilence and with blood and with an overflowing rain and hailstones, fire and brimstone. I rain on him and on his bands and on many peoples who are with him. Okay, and in Ezekiel 39, it just mentions again, caused thee to come up from sides of the north and brought thee in against mountains of Israel. And I have smitten thy bow out of thy left hand, yea, thine arrows out of thy right I caused to fall. And then in the preceding verse, verse 4, it's the demise of Gog Magog. It says, on mountains of Israel thou fallest, thou and all thy bands and the peoples who are with thee, and it's their destruction, right? So the main, descriptions are in chapter 38, chapter 39. It's just those few verses that basically repeat the same thing, okay? But there are those 2 or 3 places where God says in that day is where he will arrive. If we go back to Zechariah 14, okay, in Zechariah 14, Zechariah 14, it says here, lo, a day has come to God, and divided has been thy spoil in thy midst, and I've gathered all the nations unto Jerusalem to battle, and captured has been the city, and spoiled have been the houses, and some more bad things happen. And then it says, and gone forth has God, and he has fought against those nations as in the day of his fighting, in the day of conflict, and stood of his feet in that day on the Mount of Olives. And, it goes on, and that's when God arrives with the Messiah. Okay, so it's in that day. It's the same day. That's how quick the response is. So, I mean, I knew all those verses before. It didn't click in my head when I was making my last few videos. So basically, we're not going to have a huge preparation time. Whenever they do this attack upon Jerusalem, that's going to trigger God's arrival the same day, according to what is written. So it's not going to be waiting days, weeks, months. It's going to be the same day that he arrives. It'd be a sudden, imminent judgment day for the earth. So, they've already threatened to attack over Tisha B'Av, possibly just after. People are also thinking it might happen. So it could all just come very, very quickly upon the earth. Now, I'm not here trying to convince people it's going to be. You should always be a little bit reserved in case it doesn't happen. But based on all the evidence, based on all the prophecies being fulfilled and the ones that have already been fulfilled, I think we have more than enough reason to believe that the end of days judgment could be upon us this year and anytime soon. So again, I'll refer people to my book that's on Amazon for further evidence. If we still have time to read on Amazon, it's only $11.11, 7 pillars of scriptural proof. These are the 7 prophecies that pinpoint 2024 as the final year. So anyways, take care, folks, and God bless.